Hello, you're listening to Drawn to the Flame, a podcast and now seemingly a Twitch channel all about Arkham Horror, the card game. Hopefully, everyone listening right now knows exactly what Arkham Horror is, but if you don't, we'll talk about that in a minute. I'm your host, Frank, and today I'm joined by...
It's me, Peter. Hello, Frank.
Hi, Peter. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. This is literally the first time we've done this. So if you're in the chat, can you just confirm that our volume levels sound okay?
Silence in the chat as they think about replying.
Brill. Okay, we sound great.
Perfect. Oh, great. Good. And it's getting worse. Okay, wow. Thanks, guys. Thank you. That's fantastic.
Okay,
cool.
should I hit the button that starts the process, starts the Rube Goldberg machine that turns our webcam on?
Do it. Let's do it. Here we go.
That should work.
We'll see what
If I've done that right, there should be a lovely fade into it.
Yeah. Oh, look at that. It was a sweet fade. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Of course, I think listeners of the show won't be strangers to how we look because we've both been doing a little bit of streaming ourselves. But yeah, we thought we'd at least show our faces for this as well. I did like the idea that our streams at Farkham could just be our cool black and white logo for an hour. No talking.
Just some
the logo. Yeah.
Visual interest.
Yeah, exactly.
Peter looks like I expected Fran to look like. Wow.
Oh, wow, cool. Is that a compliment? Yeah, I'll take it.
Awesome. Right.
So how are you doing, Peter?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I was going to ask who are we. So you're Frank and I'm Peter.
Yeah.
We do a little podcast called Drawn to the Flame.
Yeah.
Should we talk about what we do? This is all, we rehearsed this, like even down to the bit where I'm saying we rehearsed this. This was all rehearsed.
Yeah. We should talk about what we do. Drawn to the Flame as a podcast, we've been going since January 2017. We are sometimes fortnightly, we're sometimes monthly, and we like to do pretty focused episodes on very particular topics. So doing something like 3 days of streaming us over a convention is not really our usual wheelhouse. It's quite exciting in that way to try that out. Obviously, fans of the show will know that we've done live shows in the past as well, but we're spreading our wings a little bit. Essentially, the Mythos Busters reached out to us and we thought, we've got to try and show those guys up in some way. Like, there is no way that they can hold a convention and we shouldn't have prime billing, obviously. And we thought we'd go the kind of lo-fi route just so we don't show them up too much.
Interestingly, Frank messaged me last night saying, how many jokes should we put in at the expense of the Mythos Busters? And I said how nasty they've been to us, and Frank admitted that they've been very nice to us so far.
Yeah, strangely nice, I think.
So
I think they're trying to lull us into a false sense of security.
The closing thing is going to be nothing but talking over tea and scones. Right. Well, I haven't included the chat on the stream, so. People will be able to catch up with this afterwards, but if we want to read messages from the chat, we'll try and read them out. So people listening can. Have you literally got tea?
I've got a pink mug of coffee.
Lovely.
I'm so on brand. Yeah.
If we want to read messages from the stream out, we'll read them out. But we've done a couple of live episodes before, but this is the first time we've done it with our faces. Live on Twitch, so we're just gonna have fun. Chill. This is our first of several at the convention, so we're gonna ease ourselves into it.
And the convenient thing is you can catch us at the same time today, tomorrow, and Sunday. So it doesn't matter what your time zone is. Whatever time it is now, we'll be on again tomorrow and the day after. That's the easiest thing, isn't it? Rather than trying to say the time.
That might have been one of the reasons I said at the same time slot every day. I don't have to learn it more than once.
Yeah, exactly. The last thing I'd say about the Mythos Busters is, like, if we shouldn't be too rude about them because they've paid us so much to turn up. That like a little bit of respect is worthwhile. I just thought I'd sow that small bit of dissension in there. I thought the first thing we could do, moving swiftly on, is just look at some of the things coming up in Farkham, because if you, the listeners, are anything like me, the idea of a digital convention is slightly overwhelming. So it's quite good to just have a quick look at what's coming up. And we've chosen a few things we wanted to highlight for you. So I'm gonna dive in and point some stuff out. Like almost immediately after our session, in a couple of hours' time, the Whisper in Darkness is having a chance encounter with Richard Lee Byers.
Yeah.
It says Buyer on the website, but it's Byers. And if you don't know, Whisper in Darkness is a YouTube channel, and he does a chance encounter where he interviews different people who are sort of either involved in Arkham Horror or tangentially involved. And Richard Lee Byers is the author of the novellas that feature Dexter Drake and Norman Withers. So yeah, he's a pretty cool guy, I think, and that'd be really interesting to hear what it's like, I guess, writing for this IP.
Are you going to be in that chat, like hammering away messages about why Norman isn't good enough?
Why Norman is too good, surely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say Norman is one of your favourite investigators. Whenever I mention Norman, you really open up, and it's like, well, let me tell you, Peter.
It's because when we played Eldritch Horror, a really good friend of mine we did random investigator selections, and he was given Norman, and he was so disappointed because it wasn't his idea of like being an action hero. It's this like bearded gentleman that no one, like not even his own community, have shunned him for saying that stars have disappeared, which is kind of a weird thing to say. And he turned out to just love Norman. I think he loved him. Love, hate. Yeah, but Norman is such a weird character for Arkham. For me, he's almost like, he almost exemplifies what Arkham's about, that you're this doddery old gentleman who happens to be able to cast spells. And he's really good in Eye of the Void as well. He like gets a Tommy gun at one point and stuff like that. He's pretty awesome. So yeah, that's coming up later today. There's also the Arkham adversarial draft, but we'll talk about that later on. And then the other thing I wanted to highlight today, it's coming up pretty late for British listeners, but there's the Ultimatum of Crowdsourced Chaos, which is something Optimal Play are doing.
Yeah, this sounds really fun.
So they've said that I think they're just playing things down, but they've said that they're so bad at playing Arkham that they've decided to rely on the community knowledge to help them build 4 decks. And you can go onto a Google form and recommend a card for each of their decks. They're playing, oh gosh, I should have checked before this. They're playing Roland, Akachi, Seth, and the 4th one will come to me in a minute. Anyway, all it says is like suggest a card, and so, you can just suggest a card. Yeah, go
those
on.
Decks are going to be like either very boring generic decks or totally off the wall, full of things you'd never run normally, right?
Yeah, and I think what they're doing is that when they hit 2 of a certain card, they'll then discount all the later suggestions. So if everyone has suggested Shriveling for Akachi, they won't run 30 copies, I don't think. I think they'll cap it, but I'm not sure how many entries they've had. So if you haven't yet filled in the form, please go look up Ultimatum of Crowdsourced Chaos on farkhamcon.com and go fill in the form and suggest cards for them, because I thought it was just a really cool idea. And they put a little box at the bottom saying, if you want to give us suggestions on the cards you've chosen, please put it here. So, if you've just put some trolley things in that you think are not very good, you can say, haha, guys, have a great time. Or pick something you think is actually like a secret great pick for that investigator. So like I put Twyla down for Akachi, because Twyla is amazing in Akachi, and hopefully not too many other people have suggested that. And whoever plays Akachi hopefully will be like, oh my goodness, this ally is exactly what I wanted. So yeah.
Brown Loaf in the chat is saying apparently Seth doesn't have many events yet.
Oh, no,
so
really?
He's either being sarcastic and she has nothing but events, or she actually doesn't have many events. So yeah, that's a job for everyone after this. Run on and
that's
stick
like
in two drawn to the flame. Not two drawn to the flame. Yes, 2 drawn to the flame, but also 2 delve too deep.
You can't just start making up cards, Peter. The other thing that they're doing is that they're asking for donations to Black Lives Matter movements. So, I mean, that's been really cool to see other people in the community jumping on. I was going to say that bandwagon. It's not a bandwagon. Getting involved in that movement and encouraging donations. So they've put a list of like hundreds of different places you can donate. So even if you can only donate a tiny amount of money, that's still really cool. And I think really like awesome that that's not just been swept under the carpet, I guess.
Yes, fantastic. Yeah. So what else have we got coming up?
Yeah, so then this evening, pretty late for the British attendees, 1:30 a.m., there's Mythosbusters recording live with Matt Newman and Jeremy Zwern. So, I mean, I think one to check out if you're British tomorrow morning when you can see it live afterwards. I hope that it'll be saved. I think it will be. So that's both designers of the game live, like, I guess, trying to make the Mythosbusters sound better.
You have to tweak the bass settings on your microphones to be able to hear Jeremy.
Oh man, yeah.
It's rumbling, deep voice. It's incredible.
There should be a scenario that has Jeremy as the antagonist, and all of the encounter cards could be sort of, bass rumbling and
amazing, yeah,
chanting and things like that. Yeah.
So yes, that'll be fantastic.
Yeah.
What else? We've got a few things the next day. You've got the notes up, Frank, that we...
Yeah. The next day, little shout out, like this clashes with us, but Los Archivos de Arkham are doing a Q&A tomorrow as well. The Arkham Archives guys better than I do.
Yes, I met them. One of the guys came over to Edinburgh a little while ago. Very, very nice group of people. There's a huge community in Spain who play the game, and they've got involved in the kind of the official side of stuff. They noted that the Spanish translators were making like kind of quite a few slip-ups in terms of the translating, and they've done a lot of work with Asmodee in Spain, neatening those up, working with them on the FAQs to make sure they're ready for the releases and things like that. And they've run like a whole load of massive fan events over there as well. So they're a really good bunch of people. And if you can speak Spanish, then I would absolutely join in with that event.
Yeah, and also listen to us at the same time. Obviously,
I'll try to. Yes.
Tomorrow afternoon as well is the first big blob that ate everything. So online blob around the world. What I wanted to highlight about this and about the following blob on Sunday is that you can play even by yourself, one player at home. There's the system, you'll need access to a laptop or access to get online so you can record the damage you're doing and other things like that. But the system is set up that you don't need to play digitally if you don't want to. And yeah, they've done a really cool job with that. So that's definitely worth checking out. And if you want to get some actual playing in, that's worth doing as well. And then later on that day, again, pretty late for British listeners, there's the Gen Con event. So it's FFG's Gen Con event, which I think is Design a Card. People can confirm for that for me. Again, you can catch up on that later. You catch up on that on Sunday morning as you're having your coffee in your pink mug. But just something worth checking out, I guess. It's kind of weird that obviously Farkham sprang up in the ashes of Gen Con, but then Gen Con has been resurrected like this sort of terrifying spectre and is haunting us behind the workings of Farkham. So yeah, kind of weird. And then moving on to Sunday, we've got our last session. There's things like the closing day kickoff stream, which would be pretty cool. There's an Iron Man, people playing all the way through Return to Dunwich in one day, if they can, which is pretty nuts. Los Archivos de Arkham are doing La Masa que lo devoraba todo, which I'm pretty sure means the blob that devoured everything, which is pretty cool. And there's also the blob that ate bedtime, which is at a slightly more reasonable time if you're a parent with kids, and it's a slightly later on session. I mean, I think that's all the big ones. Oh, there's the one that makes you chuckle like a loon.
Oh, yeah.
Italian dressing. Yeah, so this... I mean, I heard this explained. This is like fourth hand now. This is Scott from the Mythosbusters and Nate from Great Old Ones Gaming playing as Tony and Tommy, but doing Brooklyn Italian accents as they play while they play. So they're like in character playing. And so they're both sort of like Italian American in their headcanon. And the name comes from the fact that they put on fine clothes and someone said, hey, it's Italian dressing.
Yeah, that sounds like good fun. I'll just Psychopath 94 in the chat. The 94th of the Noble Psychopath line. Just wants to plug Northern Light over Arkham's COVID mask scenario, which I've seen and I need to check out. I'll check out one of the VODs. He messaged me about it a few weeks ago, so I'm excited to see how that turned out, actually. I mean, really, everything sounds good, but we've just picked out some of the stuff that jumped out for us.
Yeah. And I suppose we couldn't pick stuff out without talking about our own events.
Yes.
So today is this like slightly introductory chill and chat. We've got some other things we want to talk about that are more on brand coming up in this episode. But then we also wanted to mention what we're doing tomorrow and on Sunday. So tomorrow we're going to draft decks using listener Jack and Zan's drafting tool. So that's different from the adversarial draft. But what we thought we'd do is also let the chat decide some of the cards. So it seems like content creators are very into that. But we thought maybe every fifth card. As I say, I'm wondering if we're offering too much power.
One in every 30 cards. They get to decide.
Exactly. They can get their 31st card. The first reserve, yeah. No, we think one in every 5 we'll hand over to the chat. So you'll know what investigator we're playing and what our role will be. I mean, the role will be to try and win the scenario together, because then on Sunday we're going to take on Constellation on the Consternation. I always say it backwards. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I hope it annoys the Mythosbusters more than it annoys me. So we'll be like the Team Covenant did that yesterday. Really good stream from them. So it will be. I guess we're the yin to Team Covenant's yang or something like that. So yeah.
Asusani's asking if they can pick our basic weaknesses. Maybe we'll do a draft weakness, so we pull out 3 random basic weaknesses and they get to pick which one we get each. We'll do that.
Yeah, that'd be really good. And it's funny you mentioned basic weaknesses, because one of the problems that we saw, the Spanish community saw, was that one of those multiplayer weaknesses, I think it was self-centered, maybe it was narcolepsy, the Spanish version didn't have the action on it that allows you to get rid of it.
You just fell asleep and that's it.
they missed the bottom line off in the translation. It just cut off. So I think it was narcolepsy. You fell asleep. You could be woken up by damage, obviously, but there wasn't the action to be woken up. So they were like, "This weakness is the worst ever," obviously, and they realized it was missing a line.
Fantastic.
So, pretty brutal. Siesta Suprema in the chat. Exactly.
So here's a question, Frank. Why are we doing drafting? What is it about draft that we like?
Gosh.
Is that too intense for our Friday afternoon chilling?
No. You're the one who really likes draft, though. I'm just along for the ride. Yeah. For me, the fun of it is actually the making of snap decisions. And part of what we do in a podcast is try and evaluate things and think and weigh up this card versus that card. And then it's quite nice to sort of park all of that and just dive in, which a draft forces you to do. Because when you're evaluating perception next to Switchblade, next to, some eavesdrop, it's quite a weird, it's not the kind of evaluation we normally do. I like the freedom of it, I suppose. What about for you?
Sorry, I was distracted in the middle of that because my cat started snoring. So I hope that the mic hasn't picked it up. I think it's the kind of improvisational aspect of it, trying to make something. We're getting some requests in the chat to see the cat. We'll sort that out in a sec. It's having to make the best with what you get. I think. I hope the mic does pick up this cat snoring. It was quite loud, wasn't it? Yeah. We'll bring the cat over in a minute, and that will involve waking him up, though.
Yeah, and that improvising is kind of close to what we both really like about Arkham. Like, from our earliest conversations with each other about liking this game, there's something about trying to wing it and stick one to the mythos. And actually, if you play the game a lot, there's not that much improvising. You're kind of planned with what you do, and I really enjoy talking to other players and planning how we're going to take apart a campaign and what we're going to do the best of that. But then sometimes it's actually really fun to just down tools and see how you get on. Sometimes that can be the most enjoyable play experiences, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, do you want to briefly explain how the adversarial draft that the Mythos Busters are doing, how it works?
Yeah. I had the great pleasure to just do one playtest of it. That was all I was available for. It is really, really cool. So Casey and Scott have divided up all the cards into a kind of draft pool. And the really important thing to know is that each card is a one-of. So if you get offered a card in a draft hand, that's the only version of it. There's no point in kind of passing on it. And also, I think that really emphasizes that feeling that when you skip selecting a card, you're handing that to a player to your right or left, which is kind of brutal. But then what they've done that's really cool is they've sort of solved the problem that we were rubbing up against, which is how do you draft for Arkham where you have investigators with specific factions? And what they've done is create your own investigator.
Yeah.
So they allow you to pick your stat line, and you've got 12 stat points, and pick your health and sanity, and you've got 14, constitution points to spend. And then you also draft an ability and an elder sign ability. So there's 16 of each of those, and you end up with 4. And you get to choose those after you've done the draft. So some of the abilities they've taken are from investigators we know, and others they've created themselves. So you might find, say, reaction ability when you defeat an enemy, discover a clue. And then you might find an elder sign ability that's a +2, return a card from your discard pile to your hand. So you're like, oh, okay, I've got Yorick's elder sign and I've got Roland's ability here. Maybe I could do some kind of enemy dealing with thing, or whatever it is.
Enemy dealing with thing.
Yeah, exactly. As I was saying it, I was thinking, do those two abilities actually point towards dealing with enemies? Like the Elder Sign one, we only think of it as an enemy management one because it's on Yorick, but that could be a great ability on Daisy, Anyway, so you get a choice of those, which is really cool. And then they've added this element that I think it is sort of intrinsic in drafting, that you draft as a 4 where you're 2 pairs and you then go and play the same scenario at the same time. And the important thing here is that you get given 4 weaknesses in your deck, and the weaknesses, they've designed all of them as well. I think they designed 10 of each, and the weaknesses either let the adversaries pick something that messes with you, or summon the adversaries to your table to actively mess with you.
Oh wow, so, that's really
cool. They can come to your table. One of them is they pick 2 cards in your play area, and you have to discard one, and you get to keep the other. So they can do stuff like that, or they can shout out, like, say, I think one of them is you name an icon and you have to discard all cards in your hand with that icon.
Right, okay, yeah.
So they might not see your hand, but there's this sort of interplay with that. It's just, there's 4 of them in each deck, so it means that they can really mess with you, hurt you. And then there's a basic weakness they've designed as well. Yeah, it's just, I think they've basically solved some of the problems that we talked about and never quite got to the bottom of, and it seems really cool. And the adversarial draft is running all through the convention. So, like, if you're interested in it, go check out the slots, ask other people if they're free, that kind of thing, get involved. It seems like it's really cool. I think you need to allow about 3 hours for it, because the drafting obviously takes a while. But the fun of it as well is the actual draft. Like, just in that one playtest I did, the passing round of hands is really good. Like, you hear the delicious noises of other people going, oh, this is so good, and things like that.
Yeah,
and you end up drafting 40 cards, so then you get to slim down to a 30 card deck.
Right. Yeah.
So there's a bit of chaff to be separated.
I do that feeling of drafting and hate drafting, which is where you take the cards someone else wants. That leads to some good fun round a table.
So I just see in chat, why is it called adversarial? So you're drafting as a 4, but you're going to then divide into 2 pairs, so 2 teams of 2, and you're going to play the same scenario, but the other team is sort of going to mess with you as you play. So there's this adversary element to it. I think their thinking behind that was if there wasn't an adversary element to it, you could have a nice time drafting super powerful decks and go and crush a scenario. And there's not that counterbalancing element of why am I doing this, or why do I need to make my decks as good as possible. I think that's the kind of driving principle there. So it's adding a competitive element to Arkham that isn't currently in it in this special mode. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. Yeah, as if the game doesn't mess enough with you. Exactly. Like, yeah, and the deck I drafted looked insanely strong as well. I'd sort of drafted a fighty deck I managed to get stick to the plan and loads of extra ammo and things like that. But I think that quickly gets disassembled by these beckons and summons and by needing to kind of carry the weight of fighting for the whole team. So yeah, that's adversarial draft. Check it out. We won't be doing that. We knew that adversarial draft was coming when we said we were going to draft investigators, but I think we'll still stick to our plan. And if people have strong views about which investigators we play, we've got a few ideas, haven't we? But we haven't settled yet.
Yes, we will talk about those, I guess, at the beginning of the draft when we do our draft episode tomorrow.
Cool. The next thing we wanted to look at actually was the in-flight report from Wednesday evening. Yeah, Wednesday evening.
Yes.
So they did a sort of digital in-flight report, FFG did, and it did feature some Arkham Horror Files stuff. And one of the things we really enjoy doing that doesn't often make it into episodes of Drawn to the Flame is speculating, theorizing.
Frank cuts it down to just the good stuff.
Yeah, just the hard facts. Yeah, exactly.
As soon as I start saying, "Well, what about?" Frank hits the pause button.
I think it's the other way around, isn't it? When I say that, there's just silence on the other end of the line. I'll only deal with facts here. So what we wanted to do, what we've done is we've taken some stills from that in-flight report. So I'm just going to mention now, if you haven't seen the in-flight report and don't know anything about what's coming up in Arkham and don't want to be spoiled now, this is your warning not to look. We're just going to share 4 pictures, but they do contain some information for future products. So I just wanted to warn people, now's your time to look away. And in fact, just before we move on to this, should we just check that chat is cool?
Chat is cool. I've been keeping an eye on it.
They also... Okay, cool.
It's
There's nothing we need to
reply cool people who are our fans.
Sweet. Okay.
I'm not sure about the decision to put stuff which might put people off in our stream while we want people to watch live. but let's do it. Right, shall I put the first one up?
Yeah. Hypothesis time.
Okay, hypothesis time. Hopefully. Boom, there we go.
Big boom. Okay, so this is the image that they introduced talking about the Arkham Horror Files line of products. And I've seen a lot of talk about what we're about to look at, but I just wanted us to look at this briefly because look at this image. Is it something coming up in Arkham?
Yeah, it's pretty wild, right? There's like heads coming out of it as well, like human heads coming out of it. It's very The Thing.
Very The Thing. That kind of, there's vomiting, it almost is also sort of sinking into the ground as well.
Or coming up out of the ground?
Yeah, like out of sludge. So one of my thoughts is it does look a bit fishy. Fishy in like the piscine sense, not in the...
Yeah. It looks a bit like how FFG usually depict the deep ones, right? There's like a kind of pilot fish face going on there.
Yeah. So I just wondered, like, they're doing a concerted effort to move various Arkham Horror Files games to Innsmouth in their next releases. They've clearly like worked behind the scenes on that, and this is the image they chose to announce that. And so I assumed it was Innsmouth related, but the tentacles and the like trapped heads, it also gives me that kind of like Dunwich-y vibe of, or even like Shub-Niggurath vibe of just like life exploding and growing in the wrong way, mutation and things like that. So yeah, I think it's a cracking image. Would not like to meet that in a darkened alley.
No, whatever it is. You're right, yeah, because the next expansion for Arkham Horror 3rd Edition is also, what's it called, Beneath the Waves or something? We had that big discussion about what it was called.
On the dark waves, in deep waves.
Yeah, something about
deep
waves,
dark
and
waves.
something spooky.
Yeah, spooky waves, exactly. Yeah,
Under the spooky waves.
What's coming out of that dude's mouth? I think he's sort of vomiting something. And yeah, someone mentions in Japutub mentions it looks like the background is a man-made wall, which is a great observation. Is this a creature kept in a cell or in a well or something like that?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, well, spooky. Right, should we go on to the next one?
Yeah, let's go on to the next one.
Right. I'm going to do this. There we go.
Here we go with the names of the 6-packs in the Innsmouth Conspiracy.
Yes.
And I actually went and did a little bit of research here because I wasn't sure if the introductory article revealed the names of the 2 scenarios in the deluxe box. And I went and had a look, and it doesn't. But I'm going to read something to you anyway, Peter.
Please do.
You awaken in dull, throbbing pain, trapped in a smooth stone chamber. Kelp dangles from the ceiling, and a rhythmic drip echoes through the cave. You have no memory of how you arrived here, but you know you have to get out. The tides may be rising, and deep within the tunnels that surround your pit, you can hear an awful croaking and gurgling. That, I think, is the intro to the first scenario.
Wow.
In the Innsmouth Conspiracy.
So what part of that intro scenario do you think is going to be the name of this scenario? Croaking and gurgling?
Croaking and gurgling, yeah. Maybe, yeah. The tides may be rising tides.
Rising
like
tides, yeah. Who knows? Right, okay, so actually on my screen I can't see the names of these packs particularly well. So do you want to hit me with each one? Yeah. And I'll give my live reaction to it.
Cool. So also we don't have any clue about...
Sorry, someone in the chat said clamnesia, which has made me laugh.
It's good. Thanks, Jaya. Yeah. So we also have no clue what's happening in the second scenario. So maybe we can make some kind of a hypothesis when we work out what the third scenario is about what happens in between. So pack 3, or pack 1 rather, the first Mythos pack, is in too deep.
This is clever, Frank, because I don't know whether you know this, but in too deep is an expression which means you're in trouble beyond your ability to deal with it.
You've got in too deep.
Yeah. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did know that.
Okay. But the clever thing is, it can also, deep refers to like the depths or something, so you might be deep beneath the waves.
You could literally be in too deep.
Yeah. I think the intention is it's a clever double meaning of the phrase in too deep.
Okay, cool. Do you think if we interview Matt after this cycle, he'll do like he did with Point of No Return and ask us, did you feel that you were passing a point of no return? Did you feel that you were in too deep? And we'll say, yes, we did. Yeah. So that I believe is the first pack in the next cycle. It would be really weird if they ordered it just randomly. And then the next pack after that is Devil Reef. Give me your hot take on Devil Reef.
Devil Reef. Well, Devil Reef is this is pretty straightforward. Devil Reef is the reef that sits outside of Innsmouth, underneath which is like the gateway to the city where the deep ones come from, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And there's you see people like furtively doing mysterious rituals on Devil's Reef at night. I seem to remember in the story.
Yeah, so and Silas goes there in his novella.
Oh, does he? I've not read that.
Part of the rumours around it is basically like the reef is really treacherous. But of course, the implication is because it's swarming with deep ones. So if you sail near it, the risks aren't all geological or marine in nature. They're also because there's like an angry tribe of deep ones that will kill you if you go near it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a straightforward name, but potentially interesting. It's occurring relatively. Are these in order? Did you say?
We think so. Yeah, we think so. Yeah.
It's occurring relatively early in the cycle, then.
Yeah. So, like, here's my early theory here.
Go on.
Whatever happens in the deluxe, we decide to take action, and we go out to confront the deep ones and in too deep and head to Devil's Reef, and something goes horribly wrong there, and we realize we're not prepared and we backpedal. So it would be that quite nice thing of like, it's a little bit like in Carcosa and going to the asylum, where it's like, right, we're going to go and solve this, and then maybe the story will take quite a dramatic turn after that point. But it seems like whatever we found out in scenarios 2 and 3 are saying there's deep ones, they're coming from Devil's Reef, we're going to go and deal with it, I hope. And then the next pack is Horror in High Gear.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with the chat here, and that is possibly the best name for any Mythos pack ever.
It is pretty cool.
It's great. That is an amazing name.
It pictures a car on the front of it, which may be important.
Yes.
And it's in a wood. So I'm pretty sure the car is not standing on Devil's Reef. So we can assume that whatever happens in Devil's Reef, we make it back to land. Or, like going out on a limb here, maybe in keeping with the 4th scenario in campaigns being a possible ender. maybe Devil's Reef, if you can't complete it, you die.
Or another gang turns up, set of investigators turns up halfway through.
Yeah, in their little jalopy, ready to explore.
Yeah,
in high gear.
I think. So, yeah. Well, based on, I'll tell you what, we'll come back to this because we're going to see another, what is probably a card from this pack in a minute, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll come back to this, but basically, horror in a forest, going fast. I think these things are all good fun. Yeah.
I think having a forest setting will be a nice contrast with seas and the decay of Innsmouth and things like that.
Yeah, there's a couple of people in the chat speculating what we might be seeing with Devil's Reef is actually the conclusion of the story, and then other bits, or towards the end of the story, and other bits are being told in flashback as well.
Great thought. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are making the big assumption that these are in order, and I'm hoping that they are just because of the way that they were announced and talked about and sort of release dates, but we could be wrong. So on the bottom row, we've got a light in the fog. There's a picture of a lighthouse and kind of cliffs and crashing waves.
Yeah, this seems pretty standard, really. There is I'll have to dig my map out of the coast around Innsmouth. I think there is like a point where there is a lighthouse outside of the town.
That'd be good to see. Yeah, and trying to take literally the meaning, a light in the fog means maybe we found something that will help us, or unravel things.
Or we're looking for something that'll help us.
Or we're looking for something that will help us. Yeah, exactly. Maybe there's a sense that if we didn't do well at Devil Reef the first time, we're trying to find a new vantage point and work out how to proceed from there, which could be pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one that to me is the most opaque in terms of working out sort of what's happening.
I mean, you could also say potentially, actually I think someone just said it in the chat. Was it? Yes, Japutub had said maybe you're in a boat for this one.
Right, yeah.
It'd be pretty on the nose.
You're trying to get to the coast
exactly,
in some way, or set out from the coast.
Trying to find the lighthouse without crashing on the rocks.
Yeah. Great shout. And then the final 2 packs are The Lair of Dagon and Into the Maelstrom.
Yeah, this is pretty ominous stuff, right?
Yeah. There's been a pretty heavy hint that the great old ones for this cycle are twin great old ones of Father Dagon and Mother Hydra.
Yes,
that they're the great old ones associated with Innsmouth. So that would suggest if people are thinking this is the Cthulhu cycle, they might be disappointed. But particularly with a pack called The Lair of Dagon, we're pretty straightforwardly into that terrain. And I feel like Into the Maelstrom is the Ancient Evils art, just turned up to 11.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I can't see it hugely well, but it does look like that, doesn't it?
It's a sort of a semicircle of cultists before a green bubbling pool bowing in front of it, yeah. Although, again, keeping with Arkham traditions, does the final pack 8, take us, or scenario 8 rather, take us out of this realm? Are we going into some, if the deep ones have been trying to open some kind of gate to allow more deep ones to come to this planet, is the finale that we go through the gate and try and stop it? Is that what the Maelstrom is? Or
I still find it interesting that the cycle is called the Innsmouth Conspiracy, because that implies some kind of subtle but maybe human scheme. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Are those humans worshipping there, or are they deep ones? That's another.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. I think the conspiracy element is something that we're both quite excited about, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Untangling the threads of what's going on and these flashbacks that Matt's told us about that they'll reveal various things. So yeah, like super excited about those packs. I also just love the color scheme that they've gone for with this cycle. This sort of sea green, and yeah, it's kind of creepy and wonderful.
Yeah.
So yeah,
looks good. Okay, should we jump on to the next slide?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. There we go. Right.
Boom.
Right. I can just about see these. So do you want to hit me with what we've got here?
So we've got two assets that are null costed. They're vehicle traded. They both have the word vehicle then written on them. And the one on the left is fishing vessel. And I mean, it's a pretty big.
Yeah, that's a hell of a boat, like, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not like rowing boat. It's fishing vessel. And then the one on the right is Thomas Dawson's car. And it has a subtitle, Running.
Yeah. I spotted that straight away when we looked at this the other day, didn't I?
You did, yeah. So fishing vessel says, while you're in this vehicle, treat your location as if it were unflooded. And it has an action, move fishing vessel to a connecting ocean location. And we know that they have added flood tokens into.
Of course they have, yeah.
And flooding, let me tell you about it. While flood tokens offer no inherent effects, a card like Awakening means you won't hesitate for long in a fully flooded location. So they have partial flooding and fully flooding. And Awakening is an agenda that reads, when your turn begins, if you're at a fully flooded location, you struggle for air. When your turn ends, if you did not enter an unflooded or partially flooded location during your turn, take 5 direct damage. So being in a boat, probably a good thing to avoid being fully flooded.
Yeah.
I guess if that scenario just has ocean everywhere, we've seen there's an ocean trait there. If you're not in the boat, you're in a fully flooded location because you're in open sea. So once you're in the boat, then that's the way of getting around.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, the vehicle isn't just a trait; it's a keyword on the card. So it has some rules baggage associated with it. One would imagine it maybe attaches to your location or something, or do you know what I mean? And then you're in it.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Someone in the chat is saying some treacheries and monsters may try to pull you off the vehicle. So imagine like you're on the fishing vessel and the tentacle emerges from the water and pulls you overboard.
Yeah. Exactly. And then you're suddenly in if every location is flooded, but while you're in the fishing vessel, it's unflooded. Yeah. The other thing I'd note is that we can see the encounter symbols in the top right of these cards.
Oh, yeah.
One of them is a little car, and the other is what looks like coral that you'd find on a reef. And the other thing I'd add is that we can see the encounter symbols for some cards from the announcement article, and they're not the same, which makes me think that these cards are coming up later in the cycle. We probably won't get vehicles in the first scenario. We might, but we won't. So Thomas Dawson's car is a little bit harder to unpick. It says something about investigators in this vehicle in the first line. So that might be a limit for how many investigators, maybe 2, because it's got 2 seats. And then it also says unning, which I'm assuming is running. Investigators cannot enter or leave it. And then what else can we make out here? Something about vehicles driver, draw the top card of something, then move this vehicle to a connecting something, I'm guessing location, max once per round. And then also there's something vehicles driver, you stop the car, flip this card. So I'm guessing if you're the vehicles driver, you can stop it and the car stops running. You can turn it over. It will have a stationary or idling side or something like that. What's jumping out for you about that?
Well,
if anything.
Draw the top card. I mean, draw the top card could be the encounter deck.
Yeah.
But that seems quite harsh. Could there
Draw the
be
top card of the
like a location deck, a bit like Explore, or is there like a rolling road rule where you're moving through a forest?
Yeah.
I mean, it could be encounters, or there could be a subset of the encounter deck that deals with the car if it's a major part of the scenario.
Draw the top card of the forest deck, whatever it is.
Draw the top card of the car malfunction deck.
Yeah. Draw the top card of the crash deck. Yeah. So that's kind of interesting. The fact that it says then move this vehicle to a connecting location, I'm assuming connecting location, makes me think that it's not a deck of locations. But maybe the encounter deck is filled with things like bump in the road and fallen branch. You know, maybe that's what you're forced to draw, and the encounter deck behaves quite differently in that scenario. I'm assuming it's horror in high gear, and you're drawing through different cards to kind of race through and things like that. So what's your take, just big picture, on vehicles coming to Arkham?
Interesting. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Give us an interesting. It's a weird one when you often look for the thematic link between the mechanics and the cycle. Like we talked about Swarm and the Dreamland cycle.
Yes. Yeah.
How in the kind of the dream worlds you've got spiders who obviously swarm. But I can't necessarily immediately see a thematic link between the two. I'm interested to see how the rules work, because I think they could be a really key part of how the flavour works of those scenarios, if you're like cruising around on a vehicle.
Yeah. I think there's something that I feel quite positive about here, which is it doesn't look like they're cards that you can add to your deck.
No.
And always one of the questions about vehicles has been, what happens when you add a vehicle to your deck and then you're in your car on the Essex County Express, say, or whatever it is. I think
yes, you get your motorbike and you're running up and down the train.
Yeah, I think gating those things to specific scenarios is probably like the neatest way of doing it. I know people would really like to be able to drive around Arkham and things like that, but you can still drive around Arkham or travel around Paris by just having effects on locations that say, spend a resource, move to a station location, whatever it is. So yeah, I think it'll just be really interesting if they also really shake up how we think about playing certain scenarios, like, because it's taking one of the key elements of the game, movement, and really rejigging it. Something like fishing vessel, if you're just having to use these actions to move the fishing vessel to different locations, suddenly things like Pathfinder, and I've seen in the chat, and Shortcut stop being as useful because you're tied to a specific card to move. And that might feel really oppressive, or that might be really liberating to think, okay, there's loads you can do with movement. So
yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's move on to the last one. I'm aware we've only got sort of 10-ish minutes left, Frank, and we had a couple of things we wanted to chat about. So let's look quickly at this here.
I could fill 10 minutes on this for sure. Wowee.
Yeah.
So this is War of the Outer Gods scenario pack, just to add the extra excitement. This was what was going to be the scenario at Gen Con this year. And they announced in the in-flight report that they would just be releasing it to everyone in December instead this year, because obviously Gen Con hasn't happened. And the setting is that it's any number of investigators can play an epic multiplayer mode, and they're pitted against 3 different warring cults who are battling against each other. And you can actually see on Horrific Shoggoth that he has the keyword warring. So he's got retaliate, warring, which is kind of nuts. The other thing you can see is that the Shoggoth's art or card is green.
Yes.
And the card in the back is red.
Yeah.
And then the card on the right is kind of blackish blue.
Yeah.
And you can also see that the encounter symbol is different for the Shoggoth and the card on the right, which looks like it's called something like Inevitable End. So immediately I'm thinking the encounter deck is filled with 3 different color cards, or there's maybe 3 encounter decks or something else like that, or these are separate decks. And yeah, I don't know how that's going to work, but I love the idea of being caught in the crossfire between different factions. and I'd love to find out how warring works.
Yes, me too. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, the cat stepped inside the loop of the headphones just then.
Nice.
Normally I shut them out when we're recording, so this is a fun experience. Yeah, and us having had the experience of running large events, that statement that says it works with any number of players, that feels good, right?
To use a Peterism, chef kiss, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
the delight of that. And I was saying to patrons of the podcast, the idea of come December doing a blob that ate everything in the morning and then War of the Outer Gods in the afternoon. Any number of people can turn up. We'll just jam it for a day and go to the pub in the evening. That to me sounds delightful.
Yeah. And what I don't know. So when you first sent me it, the description to it, because I didn't get a chance to watch it live. One thing that struck to me is there an element of antagonism, much like the draft, the adversarial draft, where you're potentially working with the other various cults, maybe, or are working against other players. I don't know. It was my initial reading, and having read a bit further, I don't think it's the case, but that could be really good fun, right?
Yeah. So your thinking about it, just to flesh that out, was that one table would be red, one table green, one table blue. So they have different cults, and you'd each be, the more you could stop the cult on your table, you'd be helping another cult win, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Which I think is really interesting.
But
I have no idea if that works then for solo.
Yeah, well, exactly, yeah. And also the fact it's called, I don't know, I get a real feeling of you being stuck in the middle here. War of the Outer Gods, they're warring, and whoever wins, we lose. To quote a tagline.
Yeah, maybe we'd even be stuck in this balancing act of if you antagonize one faction too much, they just come for you.
Yeah,
say there are 3 decks. If you kill a green enemy, next encounter phase, you have to draw all of your cards from the green deck, and that means they're like really piling on the pressure for you. So you have to try and balance. Okay, I'll kill this red enemy, and then I'll stop this blue thing from happening, or whatever it is. Maybe. Yeah.
Asusani in the chat has just mentioned that the symbol, the health symbol on the horrific Shoggoth, it says something above it that isn't normally there. It looks different, right?
The sort of little eye.
Yeah. Am I imagining that?
It looks like a sort of little vertical slit eye. Yeah. The art looks slightly different on that card anyway. The numbering looks slightly smaller as well. So I don't know if they've slightly rejigged the template to do the different colors. So yeah.
Yeah.
The Shoggoth, by the way, it says it does no damage, but it gets +1 damage for each mutation on it, and it has a forced effect that when it attacks, place 1 resource on it as a mutation. And there's no limit there. So if it hits you once, it just does a horror. Oh no, it's when attacks, so it does a horror and a damage. Then the next time it does 2 damage and a horror, and then the next time it does 3 damage and a horror. It's like pretty mean. It's just getting more and more mutated and horrible. Yeah.
Fascinating. Okay, well, we have managed to basically overshoot by 15 minutes of what we wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
But that's fine. I shouldn't have said that because no one would have noticed.
No one would have noticed.
No one would have noticed.
Some of what we have in our next section to talk about, we can talk about tomorrow as well, right?
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. Well, one thing I thought we'd like to do is maybe ask a couple of audience questions.
Yeah. So we're here to answer your questions. Yeah,
so if you've got a question, just pop it in the chat, and we'll answer those in a minute. But what we're going to do when we're finished at 5 o'clock, so that directly following us, I believe we've got a panel discussing tempo and momentum, and that's the Mythos Busters with special guests Matastrophic, Twisted Tentacle in, and Lost in Time and Space. So that's Matt, Vase, and Nate.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know who from the Mythos Busters is in that.
I think it's Scott running.
Yes, Scott is.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we'll raid over to that when it starts. But if anyone's got any questions in the meantime, just pop them in the chat. If you're in here and that's a good question. If you're here and you haven't yet, if you follow us, that will give you notifications when we're going live tomorrow, and it'd be much appreciated. Yes, just
Yeah,
because
that'd be really
numbers
cool.
go up and makes us feel better. Right, we've got a question in the chat from DK Which starter deck are you most excited for?
And Peter, do you want to put our video back up?
Oh yeah, I can do.
Which starter deck am I most excited? Jacqueline Fine. I have to say Jacqueline. I'm a huge Jacqueline fan. But then secretly, I'm also kind of excited about Harvey.
Oh really?
I've had so much fun with Big Hand Serum that the idea of just being a draw your deck person, I think could be really fun. Really fun. And I'm sort of interested, like, because they're meant to stand alone slightly, these decks, I'm really interested to see what's in the Harvey deck and how that works. How about you?
I'll be very brief because there's quite a few questions I'd like to answer.
Okay.
The two I think I'm most excited about, Jacqueline, because I think I like her.
Yeah.
I like her and her ability. And actually, I think Stella could be really, really interesting to play with. So I'm quite keen to get my hands on her as well. Unless, like, her Investigator card, I'm probably less excited about, but I think there's some really cool cards in her deck. And I think she's got some really cool cards, and they can combo together in really cool, exciting ways.
Yeah.
Which is good.
I did hear from a playtester that Stella, the pilot skill cap is super high for Stella.
Yeah.
Which I think is sort of the way with other survivors as well, like with Wendy. So there's limitless potential.
Right, let's run down the questions. Republic Life Human says, well, I guess, can we do an entire panel about the rogue card momentum?
No, that's the panel after this.
Oh, is it?
Tempo.
Is it? Okay, right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about this card Tempo that they're also discussing.
Valantru is saying, what are we doing tomorrow morning? We talked about this at the top of the episode. We're doing a draft. Frank and I are both going to draft decks using the online drafting tool we've used in the past, and then we're going to upgrade those decks with a little bit of XP and run them through Consternation. Yes. Consternation on the yes, got it right.
Yeah.
Consternation
Unless
on the
Valantru
Constellation
means like literally our morning tomorrow morning, in which case I will be probably planning my deck for Blob in the evening and chatting to Peter. Yeah. There's not too much on before us, is there? There's a few things. So
yeah, because we're pretty early. Right. What of your content / work do you feel proudest of? Big question.
I think the interviews with Matt are really good, but they're really good because Matt talks a lot and is really generous with his time. And so I'm sort of proud when the moments when Matt gets into a real flow and is just sharing something he's really passionate about. That feels like we really nailed it. Can I say like the corpus as a whole?
That's a really cop-out answer. No. I'm going to say the Arkham in Flames. Really, really proud of what we did there. That's really good. Right. Scribe is saying, why is Lola the best investigator? And I'm going to say the fanaticism she inspires in her fans.
Yeah.
They'll all go to
the itch,
exactly. Yeah, they'd all go to the wall for Lola, and they'll actually fight you if you don't agree. She's great, which is good. Let's have a look. Any other announcements from the in-flight report that also got your attention? Two things briefly I want to mention. That now I didn't watch it, but I've heard this secondhand. The Ant-Man card, changes shape.
Yeah.
Actually, I was speaking to my friend before this, and they were saying there's been a lot of complaints in the Facebook group about how you sleeve the Ant-Man card. And someone said he was going to cut his card in half to sleeve it in 2 sleeves. And it's like you're destroying the card to put it in a thing which helps you protect the card.
Awesome.
That sounds cool. And I like the fact that all the events in the Groot deck are called I Am Groot.
That's cool as well. Yeah, isn't one called? Yeah. Anyway,
or We Are Groot. I think it's We Are Groot or something.
Yeah, I looked at the Marvel Champion stuff as well. It looks like there's a lot coming down that pipeline. Is there an investigator you haven't got to work but want to? Luke Robinson for you,
yes,
right?
Yes, Luke Robinson, absolutely. Yeah. That's a good one.
How about for me? I can't think of anyone. Total blank.
We'll
high level.
We've just hit 5 o'clock, so we'll just, if there's any other questions, we'll answer them quickly, and then we'll raid over to the Mythos Busters channel.
Yeah. Any plans for video playthroughs? Think on your feet YouTube. We have vague plans, but nothing we can really confirm.
We are doing a live play as part of the thing this weekend, so if that works okay, that gives us a mechanism by which to do it in the future. So that's, it'll be a good test bed for how that works.
It's going to be such a car crash, isn't it?
Yes.
Not to do us down, but every time we play it goes badly. So, yeah. Who am I playing in Blob? Probably Finn, my boy Finn. I really like playing Finn. Do we feel the game is in a good place now, and how we see it evolving in the future? We'll come back to that question. I think that's a great question. Are we doing another Arkham in Flames? Yeah, we nearly did one this year, and thank goodness we didn't plan it for April, because we would have been screwed.
Yeah, well, we talked about this. I'll tell you what, we'll make this the last question before we shoot off, because it's something we've talked a lot about, just you and I, Frank, and I think we mentioned it briefly to the patron community. We started organising it. We couldn't quite get a venue and a style of thing we were 100% behind, and it meant we were dragging our feet a little bit. And like you say, actually it turned out to have worked in our favour. All of the venues we saw that we wanted were just going to be too expensive or have too many other requirements. So yeah, I would really like to do another one, maybe next year, depending on how things go. But it's certainly something I'd be keen to do.
Can you imagine an Arkham in Flames this time? Labyrinths, Blob, War of the Outer Gods. Like, there's so
adversarial
much
draft.
Yeah.
Bro. Well, I tell you what, Frank, can you do us an outro just while I look up the Mythos Busters? I think.
We don't need to do an outro. Yeah, okay, I'll think of something. So you can check us out. If you're new to us for some reason, we're Drawn to the Flame podcast at gmail.com. You can search for Drawn to the Flame. We're a podcast. We have 170 odd episodes of us talking about this amazing game, and we love sharing our passion and enthusiasm about it. You can find us both on Twitch. If you look at the channels that Drawn to the Flame on Twitch is following, it's us. It's Unitled and Mr. Zooey Glass, and I'm around the place as Zooey Glass or Zozo, and Peter is around the place as Unitled, Unitled. Cool.
Yes, thank you so much. And join us tomorrow, same time, so exactly an hour ago. And we'll be doing some drafting. So come and abuse us and put terrible cards in our decks.
Be awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.
Bro.
We're no longer live.